Hello, everybody. I am Laina Orlando, and today is episode 100. And let me confirm for sure 184, because I just posted 183. And 184 is the number of weekly episodes that I've been doing. So clearly, I've been doing this for a while. Today is February the 12th. Thank you, Krista, for correcting me. I thought it was the 11th. Today is the 12th. And as you can see, I'm in a different place. Today is my last week on my journey through a bunch of different states, and I'll be headed back home, headed back to Colorado probably Friday afternoon. But I'll go via Tennessee, where I'm going to try and see my niece. If I don't see her, I'm just going to keep on driving until I get tired that night, because my daughter told me there's a snowstorm coming on Monday, and I would like to be home before the snow, just accumulates a lot. Now, Colorado's really good about taking care of their roads, so it won't be, I'll be able to get through the roads, but I still would prefer to be home when the snow comes in and not be driving through it. So we are going to be continuing on lesson 77. Lesson 77 from A Course in Miracles, which is really the primary teaching that I use. And I use A Course in Miracles because my spiritual awakening, which started in 2002, I encountered guidance I was so blessed to have the guidance, and all of us can have this guidance if we ask for it. And I received this guidance that I even know I was asking for, but clearly something inside of me, maybe it was an agreement before I incarnated, that I would have the voice of Jesus guiding me through really the most tumultuous part of my journey, which for all of us is always that dark night of the soul. And it's never of the soul. And if it's never a night, it's the dark years, sometimes dark decades of the ego. And I was guided to understand how the mind works before I was ever invited to look at A Course in Miracles. I started my journey in 2002. I discovered A Course in Miracles. For the first time that I read A Course in Miracles was in 2011. Clearly, quite a few years had passed, 9 years. But in that time, I was given the power of awareness to teach. And the power of awareness is simply helping us become self-aware of what's going on in our mind. And as a matter of fact, I wrote a course. It's an online course called The Power of Self-Awareness. And it's just been uploaded to my new platform, where I'm going to have the Awareness Academy for online learning. And I've got a couple of people right now testing that course for me, make sure that all of the links, everything is operating as it should. And then I'm going to make it live for anybody who's interested in a very in-depth course to understand how the mind works, to understand the way the ego operates, to see how the ego gets conditioned, and what we need to do to decondition it and decommission it, if you want to call it that, because we are in the most amazing time for a human to be alive, which is at the time of the Great Awakening. And this Great Awakening, it has never happened like this before, where we are recognizing the truth of who we are and embodying it while we are in physical form. A few people have done that. Jesus did it, Buddha did it, many others have done that, but it's not been a very big number. What is happening right now is that we're going through a mass awakening. We have millions of people, if not maybe up to a billion, that are realizing there's got to be another way, because we are at the point when we have been squeezed to where it's really uncomfortable now. And the squeezing has come from so many directions. Religion has been squeezing us to the point that we realize, wait a second, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not a sinner. The debilitating effect of growing up from the moment that you're a child, hearing that you are not, that there's something wrong with you, that you're dirty in some way, that somehow you're not this perfect child that God created, completely negates what the teachings of religion are, that you're made in the image of God. And when we are told that we are not made in the image of goodness, that what we are is bad and sinful and dirty, well, that just gives the ego permission to operate as a victim. And when you couple that with God is out there and God is good and you're not, and God is higher than you and knows everything and you don't, and you got to go through these middle people to get to God, well, it becomes debilitating for a person to feel like you got to do so many things to get to God. Well, Jesus came and told us, he debunked all of that. He came in over 2000 years ago and told us, no, you are as God created you. God is in you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. He told us, I and the Father are one, and so are you. But a lot of those things, a lot of the nuances of the truths that he taught, that Jesus taught, were conveniently left out, because we've got to get really clear. The world that we operate in has been primarily used by the ego as its playground. And the ego operates from separation, from lies, from corruption, because it distorts truth. That's why it's corrupted. It operates in greed because it thinks in lack. It doesn't think that I can have access to everything. So it's very crafty. It makes others do the work to bring me what I need. It's like, use the example of a king who sits up on a perch somewhere in his castle, or a queen in her castle, and then all the other people down here working hard. Well, if the king is hungry, why doesn't he go down and grab an apple off the tree? If the king is hungry, why doesn't he go and get the chicken and do what it needs to do to cook it, to collect, to clean it? Why doesn't the king come down of his perch? Because he has been conditioned to believe that he's better and superior than all of these people. And then all of these people spend their lives bowing down to the king, and the king will give them, a little pittance, I'll throw a few dollars your way. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to tax those dollars. So these people are working their butts off for a few. They make some money on it because they've been conditioned that they can't do anything without that money. You can't go out and buy anything, because you certainly can't trade the fruit that belongs to the king. You got to get your money and you go buy your own fruit somewhere else. And those fruits are coming from other kings, other lands, other places. So anyways, we have created this idea that some have and some don't. And the ones who don't, well, we're going to tax you to death, because not only do you not have a lot, but we're going to take just about everything you have, so that when you die with hardly anything. As a matter of fact, some people will even kill themselves because they have nothing. And then we've had the ruling class who has felt comfortable with that. Well, that's not what God taught. Jesus taught. Buddha taught us to understand the mind. Jesus taught us to understand the heart. We need to put those two together. Jesus did it wonderfully in A Course in Miracles. It teaches us how to understand our mind, train our mind, because when the mind is trained, then, and you don't have all those thoughts lying to you, the ego telling you you're not good enough, you're poor little victim, you're a servant, you're down here, you have nothing, others have more than you do, and they get to make all the rules and you don't. Once you stop that chatter in your head, then you can do the work of the heart. You cannot open your heart while you think you're in danger. You've got to train your mind to believe that you're powerful, to understand the mechanics of this third dimensional world, where everything that we see is created through our thoughts. Our mind desires to have those experiences, and then those experiences materialize. The simplest example is when somebody has a vision of a home that they would like to live in, and then they go get an architect. Those ideas that get shared with the architect. The architect has their ideas. They understand the products, the things that are available here. That architect then hands that vision to the engineer. The engineer does the prep work that needs to be done to the ground, make sure that everything is stable, the foundation goes in, everything goes in the order that it does. Then the engineer hands it off to the decorator and all those things, or the builder. Then the builder hands it to the decorator hands it off to the landscaper, and before you know it, your idea becomes manifested. In the third dimensional realm, we go through a process of using time to enjoy the time that we're here. Well, the world that we see right now that most of us don't like, except if you're benefiting from things, the world that we see is collapsing because there are so many of us that we don't want that world anymore. Now, we participated in the creation of it. We went through all the steps. We funded through our taxes so many wars and so many things that are happening that we don't like. Right now, one of the things that I'm so excited because I'm entitled to miracles is watching what is happening to the government in the USA. We elected a team, the majority of us, and yes, I participated in that election and I voted for the Trump team. They're doing their part, which is what? They're dismantling what got created over time. So if the example that I gave, a person builds their house and they give their plans to somebody and that house gets created, and then somebody says, that house is now 50 years old. I love the lot, but I don't want the house. What do? We come in and we hire somebody who begins to dismantle that house. Maybe it's a wrecking ball. Maybe it's a group with a sledgehammer. Whatever it is, it has to go down to the bare bones. And when it gets down to the bare bones, then we can build what it is that we want. So those of us who are very clear that the government is no longer a representation of the power that we now know we have. We're claiming our identity as equals. We're no longer operating in inequality. We no longer want the king or the president to tell us what to do. We want to collaborate and co-create this world that we live in. And we were blessed in the USA to have an incredible constitution that was written by who? By the founding fathers who came to this world, to this land, who said, we don't want to operate by the way that they do it in Europe. They went and dismantled for themselves, not because they actually had to go break down the castles and all the things that had been done, but they made a decision. We're going to go to a land where we're going to start fresh, and we are going to start with the recognition that all of us are created equal and we have inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They put all that into our founding documents. And what has happened over the years? They created the foundation. They created the new way for us to be governed, honoring those statements. And it says in our declaration, in our founding documents, that if we don't like what the government is doing, we have the right and the responsibility to tear it down, to change it. So what happened is the USA was built on these foundational principles, and over time, different presidencies, different administrations, they came and they built stuff on top of it. They started patching the building. And now today, 250 years later, we look at this, it's a system of patchwork. And today we don't know where all those secret rooms are. It got patched and additions were put. I don't know if you've ever lived in a house with additions that other people did. And then you move in there and you go, oh my gosh, some of these things were not done to code, or I never would have done this, or things don't match. So we have a new administration that is going, wait a second. All these additions that were done to something that was already actually pretty good, we need to take that off. So our government isn't necessarily today, our administration, I should be specific, is not tearing the whole thing down. Kind of, they should in some ways. They're taking all of the things that have covered up the Americans' ability to see the true founding documents that we, if we use them, would all experience the ability through our equality to pursue life, well, not to pursue, to experience the inalienable rights to the eternal life that we have, the liberty, because we have God's free will, and the ability to experience happiness. But to get to that, we have to acknowledge that others built over it and blocked it, and we need to be courageous enough to dismantle it. But you won't dismantle it until you acknowledge that you deserve the goodness that was already given to you. And that's what we're going to focus on as we read in lesson 77, I'm entitled to miracles. People read that title and go, yeah, I'm entitled to miracles. But the reason we don't see the miracles that we want is because we don't really ultimately believe that this is so. And we have been conditioned to believe, oh, I believe I deserve the miracle of a new car. And yes, we work hard and we save up the money and we go and we get the loan, or we can pay for it in cash and then we get the car. And most of us have been content with very small miracles. The miracles of stuff are small miracles. They really are not the big thing. Course in Miracles needs us to tear down the structure of thinking that we have built. We have added through the years so many different secret little places in our own consciousness where we hide the truth. The truth is hidden inside of us, like the original American government. It's still there, but it's just been hidden. And through deceptive ways, we have been told that this is a law. But did we go check that 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, 100 years ago, that law was actually a law and not just we were told that it was a law? Well, we're finding out, for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, that so much of what we're told is law was not law, because it went against what the foundational document said. So they had to, somewhere along the way, became some kind of an addition, some kind of a wacky form of paperwork or whatever they did to make it appear as it is a law. Our ego does the same thing. We are made in the image of God. But when we start believing I'm less than, the boss is better than I am, the church knows more than I do about God, we are deceiving ourselves, just like we were deceived about what is part of the founding documents of this country. We're a constitutional republic, but we don't act that way. How many people go around telling you, let's preserve the republic? Hardly anybody says that, because we have been told that we're a democracy. And little by little, the word has been used so many times that we think that's real. Well, that's like one of those rooms that was added to the foundation of who we are. And because it's been repeated so many times and we created a Democratic Party, the Democrats, we think, oh, yeah, it makes sense. We got the Republicans and the Democrats. We've got those who really believe in democracy and those who believe in republic. So our mind has been conditioned to believe things that are not true. But to get to the truth, we've got to face what is out there, and we've got to be courageous enough to be willing to learn the truth. And when you learn the truth, no, wait a second, we're a constitutional republic and it's already there. Let's tear down everything that makes it appear like a democracy. Same thing in our own mind. We got to come into our mind. If you're a child of God, created, endowed with the same inalienable rights and created to create. We already read that in a couple of our gatherings before. We were created to create. That's how God extends. That's how God is infinite. There's no end to God, because we are what keeps God expanding the kingdom. But you cannot have a life of consistency, a life of peace, a life of entitlement to the miracles that you deserve, if your mind has opposing belief system. I'm good enough. No, I'm not. I'm powerful. No, I'm not. I'm eternal. I'm just a human. I am made of light. Oh, I have a body that gets sick and dies. You create your own reality. Yes, but except for that, I don't like that. I don't like the suffering over there. We have to go into our mind and dismantle the things that have been added on, because they are additions. They are not the foundation that we were born with. As within, so without. Every system outside of us, religion, has to be dismantled until it gets to the foundation. The foundation is that there is one God. We all believe in different ideas of God, or some don't even believe in God. Some deny God, but we all believe at some level that there is a power that animates everything that we see, that has given life to everything that we see. So we all can agree on that. Well, that's foundational. Let's come to know that. But we have to dismantle all of the things that divide us, all of the things that have been added through the years. Because, look at Jesus. He wasn't a Christian, but we've created this whole Christian religion. He was born Jewish. That's his foundation, is Jewish. But yet, is it really his foundation, or is his foundation that he knows that he is an expression of God? So we need to dismantle the Christian stuff, dismantle the Jewish stuff, and get down to the roots of really what is Jesus. And that's what he experienced through his baptism. When he had that moment of realizing the truth of who he was, when he completely, and when you look at the symbolism, he washed away what was not true. When he was dipped into the river, the Jordan River, by John the Baptist, it's like it washed away all of those additions that had been put on him. And what emerged from that was a purification of the truth of who he was. Foundationally, there was the recognition that he and God are one. All of us have to get to that we and God are one. And what is God? A creator. We've got to reclaim our creative powers, and it starts first with us. What kind of an experience do I want to create for myself? Well, you got to train your mind to think with truth, not with all those additions that have been given to you, all of that programming that we've been given that is not the truth, that is an obstacle to the truth, that is a block to the truth. We've got to remove all of that, because the foundation of who we are is God expressing itself through each and every one of us uniquely. Most of us don't even know what makes us unique, because we've been conditioned to be like everybody else. We want to be like the supermodel. We want to be like the football star. We want to be like so-and-so. We want to wear the designer clothes that they think, it's the latest thing. You watch somebody today who feels inspired to wear clothes from the 40s or the 50s or the 1800s, and comes out in a big old 1800s, poofy dress. We would laugh at them. But what if that's they're inspired to do that? Well, it doesn't fit the styles of today. I'm one of those people who judge people who didn't look like the Vogue magazine cover. That's because I was conditioned to think that that was the right way to be. I mean, when I was had my house and I was redecorating my house, I was going to look for, what is the color of the year? Who cares who thinks is the color of the year? You pick the color that resonates with your soul, that would make the environment feel comfortable for you. So much has to be dismantled until we get to the foundational truths of who we are. And that is why the government has to get to its foundational truths. The church, religion has to get to its foundational truth. Education system has to be torn down to its foundational truth. It's about educating children. Who said that only the government knows what's best for kids? I don't think so. Only that child knows what is best for them, and only the parent knows how to make sure that that child accomplishes that. And when I say only the child knows, because the child comes in, all of us come in with a predisposition for painting or singing or math or science or like you, sweet Crystal, chiropractic, healing. We all come in with a predisposition because God wants to experience that being that uniquely through that being. And if the child doesn't have a voice, what are we doing? We're putting additions. We're filling their minds with, nope, you can't be a painter. They don't make any money. You're going to be an accountant and take over the family business. So we build all of these structures around what originally is just a desire to create, and we cover all that up. No wonder the individual spiritual journey takes so long, because we're dismantling. We're literally taking the sledgehammer to everything that we're not. What an amazing journey. So lesson 77 is I am entitled to miracles. And we've been doing this lesson now for a couple of weeks after reading lesson 76, which said, I am under no laws but God's. You will only understand how to utilize your power to activate miracles when you decide to be under no laws but God's. If you're still under the laws of the government, if you're still under the laws of religion, if you're still following what something outside of you is telling you, you are not going to fully activate your own superpowers. Because to believe that somebody knows better than you is to perpetuate the story that you don't have it already in you. And that's how the ego deceives us, telling us, oh, the government knows what's better for me. Only the government can keep me safe. Only the government knows how to manage the money, and we send it to them and they divide it. I don't want to, let's not go into what USAID is doing because they know better than me. That's a conditioning that has allowed us to be complicit in the co-creation of the systems that are taking advantage of us, that have put us in these places of being subservient to them, in these places of disempowerment, because it has repeated the lie so long that it has become our lived reality. We have accepted the nonsense that we're not as God created us. So it takes us a while to undo that. Fortunately, we have a beautiful, wonderful system. God wants to express itself, and it's not going to be held down. It's like you cannot put God in a corner, like that movie. I forget the name of it, but it said, you can't put baby in a corner. You cannot put God in a corner for very long, because the power that God is going to push naturally, not in a way that is violating our free will, but is going to push us, to nudge us, to inspire us into moving out of this corner that we have been backed into by our own free choice. And this is what is very difficult to understand, why we need to train our mind. We volunteer to be born into a planet that programs us. Let me say that again. We volunteered by choice to be born, to incarnate in a planet that programs us, meaning we knew we were coming into the third dimension. We knew we had to forget everything that we know from higher dimensions, meaning knowing the truth of who we are, and box us in, take that beautiful building and create all these additions to it, close up the windows, close up all the way the light could possibly get in, until we have a very small idea of who we are. So lesson 77, I am entitled to miracles. The first paragraph tells us the reason you're entitled to miracles is because of what you are. And you can only receive the miracles because of what God is. So you need to understand what you are. Most of us don't know what we are. And you need to understand what God is. Most of us don't know what God is because we've been lied to about what God is. Maybe it was well-meaning people who just kept perpetuating the lies, or those who knew that this was a way to keep us subservient. And when you operate in a world that accepts superior and inferior, those who know and those who don't, it is very easy to move into a position of thinking, I know better than you, and to embody that position. I'm the boss, I'm the dad, and father knows best, or I'm the congressman, or I'm the whatever, and you can't question me. That's how the ego lies to us. I've risen to this position, and even though you elected me to represent you, you can't question me. Isn't that nonsensical? This is why we need common sense back in everything that we do. Our personal journey requires common sense. The shifting of the world that we see requires common sense as well. So, who are you? What is God? God is the intelligence. God is the creative spark. God is the life force. God is the love. God is everything. It's so difficult to describe what God is, but once you feel it, you know it. But let's just say God is the life force that powers everything that we experience, everything that you see. Course in Miracles says, God is everything I see, because you can't have a cup or a tree or a house or a dog or anything, a cloud, a mountain, without God having, being in it. God is embodying that for the purpose of experiencing that specific aspect of creation. So you've got to understand that God is the life force that animates you, meaning you and God are one by virtue that what animates you is what God is. This is why this journey of coming inside, coming to know God, is to accept that you are made not just in the image of God because God imagined you. You are wanted here because what God wants to experience life through you and as you. But for God to have the ability to do that, you must dismantle all of the ideas that say that that's not true. Oh, God's out there on a cloud, not in here. God is good, I'm not. Jesus could, but not me. All of those distorted programming ideas, thoughts that we have, we've got to sift through them, train our mind to sort. This is true, this is not, this is true, this is not, and let go of what is not, until all that is left is you embodying the truth. You don't have to have the thought of truth. You don't have to think I'm entitled to miracles. You just know that whatever you think about, you bring about because the miracle right now that we are witnessing is every human that awakens is accepting who they are because they know what God is. So that is what's co-creating so many of the miracles. And when you know what you are, when you know what God is, and it is working through you, and God is love, and God is intelligence, and God is creativity and joy, that's when you're going to experience peace and happiness. They go together because now that you know the truth of what's going on, what is there to fear if you're creating your reality? So then it goes on to say in paragraph number 1 is that you will offer the miracles when you accept that you and God are one. Can you imagine how much training the mind has to go through so that 6, 7, 8, 9 billion, I don't know how many billion people are on the planet. I don't even know that's true. It's what I keep hearing, so I'll just go with it. But when every single person on this planet accepts that they are one with God, do you think we're going to have murders? Do you think we're going to have cheating and lying and corruption? It's not possible. If you create your own reality, why would you create bondage? The bondage that we are moving out of is because our minds were manipulated, because we knew that that's what happens in this playground. We knew we were coming into the planet that manipulates and basically incarcerates people through wrong thinking. We knew we were coming in to get shrunken into a very small idea of who we were, but we came in knowing that I am the light of the world, and I'm just going to have to continue to shine my light so that I can see what's not true. Little by little, I will move out of this boxing in that I have experienced from society until I experience total freedom to be who I am as God created me. Can you imagine 8 billion people feeling confident and certain and trusting and abundant and happy and joyful? Do you think we're going to have problems? No, we're not. It's not possible. Who's going to think that they're better than another? Not in a world where we know truth. Who's going to lie to another? Not in a world where we know truth. That is the beginning of collaborating and co-creating and communicating totally, completely in honesty. No deceptions needed when we're operating in the transparency that acknowledges the truth of who we are. Not only that, our bodies will be so purified, operating at the highest, most optimal level that we will have telepathy. We won't even, there's no way anybody can lie to each other because we're going to be able to know what you're thinking, which is a scary thing for those who are operating in secrecy. All right, so let's go to, let's see. Oh yeah, so at the bottom of paragraph number 2, it tells us that the only way to claim our miracles is really through our creation. And our creations are guaranteed by the laws of God. So if you want miracles in your life, if you want well-being, if you want that new house, if you want that new car, but most importantly, if you want to feel peace and happiness, you have to take 100% responsibility for creating that. Because the miracle is your shift in perception from, oh, poor me, to, whoa, I and God are one. And I am claiming this creative power. And anybody who's saying, but look at what's happening in the world and so, you're just simply in that moment saying, I don't have the power. When your words, when your language matches your knowing that you are the creator of your reality, you're not going to speak in victim language anymore. You can't say, oh, but look at those poor people over there, because there are no poor people over there. There are powerful beings playing roles because why? They incarnated on the planet where we can pretend to not be what we are. And once you see everybody as a powerful creator, you're literally emitting the frequency of truth that empowers all beings, because then you won't buy into those stories that people don't have power. So in paragraph, let's see, number 4, we did this last week. We looked at, again, that we're entitled to miracles and we are asking only for what is rightfully ours. Listen to that statement. We're asking for what is rightfully ours because God created us like itself. So if you want miracles, if you want things to change, if you want to feel more peace, you have to accept what is rightfully yours. We don't become enlightened. We don't become liberated. We have to accept what has already been given. We are the ones who have to train our minds to stop blocking what is true. It's not going to come down from God. God is in you. It's going to come out from you. And that's what we have to understand. The peace, the love, the joy, the creativity is not going to come to you from the outside, even though we say, we're asking God, what would you have me do? But it's God speaking inside, and we listen to what's inside. That's why we've got to train our mind to turn off listening to what the world says, so that we can create that individual relationship and go inside. So paragraph number 5. And this is the new paragraph, and this will be for episode 184 that we're doing today. So after this brief introductory phase, where, it was giving us in paragraph number 4, was the steps to how to practice this lesson. So wait quietly for the assurance that your request is granted. That previous paragraph is telling us we got to get quiet. We got to stop listening to the ego so we can create a space of quiet in the mind. And when we are quiet in the mind, then we can hear. But we have to make that space, because it's our egoic chatter. We got to say, ego, no more talking. Please, quiet. So sentence number 2 says, you have asked for the salvation of the world and for your own. See, we've got to understand that our request is always granted. It's always granted because God wants to create through you what you desire to experience. You are the one out here looking, saying, I want that. And God is the one through you who has inspired that. But then you've got to be willing to take the actions that are necessary. Just as if you want that certain house, you got to hire the architect, you've got to hire the people, you got to buy the piece of land. It's a very active process that we have to learn to co-create with God. So, and when it says you have asked for the salvation of the world and for your own, Course in Miracles teaches us that the salvation of the world depends on us, because when we come to know who we are, we will stop being needy. We will stop being leeches that are sucking the life out of others. We don't feel good and we got to go get somebody to make us feel better. We are all upset and suffering and we want somebody to suffer with us, which is why we have the saying, misery loves company. When you stop participating in disempowering others because you're coming from your low vibration and you own what you are, now the salvation of the world depends on you, because you have to see everybody as powerful, whole, and complete. If you don't see your children as powerful, whole, and complete, then you continue to perpetuate their victimization or them being bullies or whatever it is. So you become a hovering helicopter parent. If you don't see your kids as capable, you're trying to live your life through them for whatever reasons, so it makes you look better as a parent, so you can prove to your parents you did it better than they did. Whatever the reasons are, I know them all because I've played all those roles or I've coached enough people so I understand them all. So sentence number 3, you have requested that you be given the means by which this is accomplished. You cannot fail to be assured in this. You are but asking that the will of God be done. When you want peace, you have to accept that the will of God was for you to experience the peace that passes all understanding. And the only way to experience that is for you to acknowledge that that source of peace is within you. If you got to go to the mountain to feel peaceful and you come back and you have peace, it's not your peace. You brought the peace the mountain has with you. And guess what? It won't last forever. Because the minute you go to the grocery store, now you're going to experience the chaos of the grocery store. And you'll trade the peace of the mountain for the chaos of the grocery store, never having experienced your own. This is something that we have to acknowledge is within us. So we can go to the grocery store and be at peace no matter what. We can go to the mountain and participate in observing chaotic things, and it doesn't shake us. It doesn't move us off of our foundation. But we have to accept that everything that we desire is already within us. That's how we begin to acknowledge that we are whole and complete. There's nothing missing. Everything we need is already within us. So paragraph 6, in doing this, you do not really ask for anything. Isn't that amazing? We're not asking for anything when you do God's will. You state a fact that cannot be denied. Only our ego says, oh yeah, I know I am, God is within me and I'm whole, perfect, and complete, but I still need something else. Oh, I still need a person to make me happy. Or I still need my kids to behave and stop complaining about this, and then I'll be peaceful. We block our ability to feel that peace by letting the ego tell us a bunch of stories that are not true. Your job, our job, is to train ourselves to watch the mind. Oh, this is the ego talking. Oh, this is what it feels like when we listen to God. Very different messages. You guys have seen the charts that I use. One side of the world that God is creating, and the other side is the world that our ego creates. What we're observing is the world the ego created is crumbling. The opportunity is for the world that God creates to arise, but it arises through you and through me. We have to be the example of what that looks like. We have to become transparent. We have to speak the truth. We have to cooperate, collaborate. We need to stop bullying people. We need to stop playing the victim. How else is the world going to get the examples of what it's like to embody that higher frequency? So we have to be the change we want to see in the world. And right now, this world needs a lot of us to be walking among the rubble of all the things that are being destroyed, and not go around, oh, that's terrible. Oh, that used to be such a beautiful organization. Oh, no, they're dismantling it. You have to sit in recognition that anything that is not of God's is going to crumble, because there's enough of us who accept that the truth about God, and God does not create lies and cheating and divisiveness and haves and have-nots. God does not do that. So we have to recognize the truth of who we are, and trust that God is working through so many, creating the same thing around the world. We're not unique in the USA. Every country has its own systems, and many of them are crumbling. I watched something in the UK where, and I'm not sure, I don't remember who was the person who was speaking, but he was saying, we like what Trump is doing in the USA. We need to do that here. And what is Trump doing here? But basically bringing in common sense, finally, saying no more to the corruption, saying no more to the lies and the cheating. And of course, all of the people who in their ego needed the government to tell them what to do, they don't like seeing that that's getting shaken up. They don't like seeing that their masters are being dismantled, because they haven't found their own inner truth, and they haven't founded themselves on these principles that say that they don't need somebody outside of them protecting them or taking care of them. All of that is programming that is being undone so that you can find your voice and be part of the change you want to see in the world. These are amazing times. So 3, paragraph 6, sentence 3, the Holy Spirit cannot but assure you that your request is granted. The fact that you accept it must be so. There is no room for doubt and uncertainty today. We are asking a real question at last. The answer is a simple statement of a simple fact. You will receive the assurance that you seek. You will receive it. Why do you receive it? Because it's already been given. We are just accepting what has been true forever that was covered up. We're accepting what we were born with, that has always been there, But because we created all these distractions, we couldn't access it. So, give ourselves a little grace, forgive ourselves for having forgotten the truth and been looking for love in all the wrong places, been chasing peace and joy and happiness in all the wrong places, because we were all told to look outside of us. We are learning to come within, and nobody can take us on that journey. We have to go in there by ourselves. Nobody can go inside of us and sort out the beliefs in our own head except for ourselves. So it can feel like a lonely journey, which is why it's nice to come together with others who are like-minded, who are doing the same thing. Paragraph 7. Our shorter practice periods will be frequent and will also be devoted to a reminder of a simple fact. Tell yourself often today, I am entitled to miracles. I am entitled to miracles. And you're entitled to miracles because of what you are and what God is. And when you feel the miracle, you will experience you and God are one. Because it's in the activation of the miracle and giving yourself that experience that you know you have just accepted what God created you with, has been there all along, but you got trained to look outside of yourself for it. Don't look for a savior outside of yourself. Trump is not our savior. Trump is just doing a job. And when you look at the chart that I have, the map of consciousness, Trump is at a place of courage. And you don't get to courage until you move through pride. To me, Trump was at a place of pride in the first election. And through seeing what was going on, through seeing how much more difficult the system was, it's a good thing that he wasn't there for the last 4 years, because he needed to get back, see all that was going on, to have the courage to come back in. Aren't you guys seeing Trump 2.0? You know, he's gentler, kinder, not so much, tweeting, mean things. Well, because in his prideful place, the ego was more active. When you move into courage, there's less ego. There's still some ego, but there's less ego, because now there's more God. It's like that seesaw. So when we're operating in pride, there's a lot more ego. When we're operating in courage, there's a little less ego and a little more God. And as we begin to drop that percentage of ego and increase a percentage of God, we ascend into the higher levels of consciousness. And when I compare the cheating and the lying candidates, that there were other options, then they're lower, because they're in that prideful place of look at me, and unwillingness to be transparent, to share what you're doing. And what's Trump doing? Right now, Trump is doing what he said he would be doing. So there's a transparency and there is a consistency, where I look back at politicians. They say they're going to do one thing, but they don't. And we've accepted that. We've accepted that because we haven't accepted that we're entitled to miracles. No, I voted for you to do this. And even if I didn't vote for you, you told those who did vote for you that you were going to do that. Why didn't you do that? This is why we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. Trump comes in, he's doing something very different, same within our mind. If you don't do something drastically different, which is to don't believe your own beliefs, do not believe what you think is true. If it goes against your power given to you by God, you are using your own mind to block yourself from what you say you want. So then you're not being consistent. This is why it takes radical honesty to do this work. If you catch yourself judging, call yourself out. Oh, I was just judging. That was not loving. But I forgive myself. I didn't know what I was doing. Jesus taught us that example. He forgave people who were crucifying him because he knew they don't know what they're doing. So we have to do the same with us. We've got to crucify that ego and allow the resurrection of our God-given self, as God created us, fully entitled to the miracles. But the miracles are not, at this stage of the journey, the miracles are not about getting stuff. At this stage of the journey, the miracles are about using our voice, finding our true passion, using our voice to speak to what we know is of God's, just as Jesus did. He walked around in the middle of places that those who were in positions of power, because they got there because they had pride, which is a lower frequency than courage, and Jesus had plenty of courage. He was speaking the truth, and they were being inconvenienced. What are you telling people, that God is inside of them? No, we're the rabbis of the church. We've got the documents that say, you can't possibly be the Messiah. We've got all these, 400, 600, 800 rules that we have to abide by. And Jesus is going, no, you don't. Use common sense. Keep it simple, dude. All you need to do is love God and love your neighbor as yourself, because we are one. But in this game of prideful, I'm at the top of the church and I'm at the top of the government and you're down here at the bottom, we're missing the point. We're perpetuating the game of separation, which is the ego. That's why you have to train your mind. But when you train your mind, you can only use that training when you can sort it out. This is what the ego says. This is what God says. This is what fear does and says. This is what God love does and says. And then we catch ourselves, and then we shift and we lift. We shift from the lower frequency of pride, and I know what's better, to humbling ourselves enough. And what does God say? Let me do what God says. And then I will experience the miracles that I'm searching for. But in doing what God says, I'm just accepting my power to create the experiences that I prefer. I mean, once you step back, it's pretty simple. But it's not easy because you got to do it over and over and over and over and over and over again, which is why we have lifetimes to master this. So paragraph number, I'm about to sneeze. I am blessed. So paragraph number 7, sentence 4. Ask for them, meaning the miracles, whenever a situation arises in which they are called for. You will recognize these situations. I say the irritations are the invitations to see the ego's motivation. Ego wants you to be in fear, act as a victim or a bully, and love in the higher frequency wants you to experience peace and joy and to be free to be yourself. So when you're experiencing those irritations, call forth. First, ground yourself in the knowing that you're entitled to the miracle because it's already in you. All you're doing is accessing what is in you. You're not trying to go get it from somewhere else. You're activating it from within you, which is your way of letting God know, yep, I am as you created me. I'm enjoying this peace. Thank you. You put it in there. All these years, I didn't know I had it. I kept looking for my peace at the mall. I was looking for my peace in a partner. I was looking for my peace in my margaritas. And it was always there. Yes, that's the whole freaking point of this. That's why this is simple. It's already in you. Not easy because you got to undo those beliefs. And how do you undo those beliefs? You train your mind to see everything as two things: ego's ways, God's ways, fear's ways, love's ways. Then you have to be honest and pick and shift out of the fear into the love. Shift out of the lower frequency into the higher frequency. Reclaim your power. Use your voice. Be an example for those who are not there yet. They need those examples. We need those examples. All right. And since you are not relying on yourself to find the miracle, you're not relying on your ego, you are fully entitled to receive it whenever you ask. Sentence 8, remember too, not to be satisfied with less than the perfect answer. Be quick to tell yourself, should you be tempted to think, oh, you know what, I wasn't so good with my prayers. I wasn't so good with whatever. Oh, I judged, so I don't deserve the miracle. When you're tempted to listen to that nonsense, this is what you do. You make the statement, I will not trade miracles for grievances. I want only what belongs to me. God has established miracles as my right. Many of us, the journey that we're on is a journey of sovereignty, meaning we've got to stop blaming others for our lack of empowerment. We used others to blame because that's the way the ego operated. You have my power, I don't have it. Now we have to claim that we have it, and then we have to use it. That's what's so exciting about this. Absolutely an exciting time to be alive. Excuse me. An exciting time to be alive and recognize that we've all been a bunch of powerful people pretending that we're not. That is all that has happened here. This entire human experience in this third dimension, we have been powerful beings pretending that we're not. And by pretending that we're not, we had experiences and we didn't have the tools because we had people who raised us who didn't know the truth. And the ones who didn't know the truth that we were powerful made sure that we got programmed into thinking we're not. So we have been powerful beings. We are powerful beings pretending that we're not. The time of awakening is a time to stop pretending you're not what you are. You are powerful, whole, and complete. Absolutely creating your reality. And so is everybody else. If you don't accept that everyone here is equally like you, the creator of their reality, you will continue to think that now you're spiritual, you know better. And then that only activates and strengthens your spiritualized ego. I know it in others because I know my spiritualized ego always thinks I know better than anybody else. Boy, that one has been a while. It has taken me a while to override that nonsense. But Course in Miracles will help you train your mind if you are sincere about taking the lessons and applying them. This is where I see most people don't quite walk the talk because they talk it. They learn the lessons, but they're not applying it. And the applying is every single time, as it told us right here, Whenever a situation arises in which they're called for, you call for that miracle. And the miracle is a shift in perception, meaning you change your mind about what's happening. You make a decision to look at it through the eyes of love instead of fear. You choose to see it as God sees it, meaning you have all the power to do something about it. Don't worry about the government and all that stuff out there. Oh, how can you change any of that? You are changing that by acknowledging your truth and acknowledging that God is expressing itself through all those other billions of people. And there are people who are doing God's work in those realms. And the reason you know it's happening is because those things are falling apart. Do you think the ego's wrecking the construction that it created that lets it hide? No. What's wrecking all of that is God through courageous people. And when you understand the frequency of every level of consciousness, then you can hear it, you can see it, you can feel it. You don't need to judge it, you don't need to blame, you don't need to defend it. You just sit as a witness of the miracle that we are experiencing as a collective. It's a, but only those with the eyes to see will see it, and with the ears to hear can hear it. And how does that happen? You remove the obstacles, you remove those structures that you build that blocked it. This is so simple. As we read in other lessons, salvation is simple, but the ego complicates it. Oh my goodness. All right. Thank you so much for being part of episode 184. I am so grateful for this. And I will be back in my home office, home base in a couple more days, and I will be transmitting from there. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be back in Colorado, my own space. My doggy is going to be ready to be at home too. So everybody, I love you all. If anybody has anything to share, unmute yourselves. Otherwise, thank you for being here. Thank you for blessing me with your presence. I love doing what I do, and it's just such a joy to share truth as it has been revealed to me. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Yes, Christo?
Well, I absolutely loved. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that takeaway that we are all powerful beings pretending that we're not. I mean, it's such a profound statement. It's quite amazing to recognize that that's actually the game that's been played out by many, the multitudes of us, not recognizing that.
That's
And
it.
yeah, that's wonderful, And I was also reminded about this. I don't know if you saw this on AGT, America's Got Talent. There was this one lady that came on. I think she called herself Nightbird or something, and she was just radiating such amazing energy. And they discovered that, when they questioned her, that she was in fourth degree of cancer in her body, But you would never tell that. And she just said, you can't wait for things to get better for you to be happy. I mean,
What an inspiration.
that's being in the now, and she demonstrated how powerful she was,
Yeah.
and talks to what you were talking now. So thank you.
So thank you for being here. Sweet. All right. Anybody else? See you all next week. Love you
Just
all.
thank you, Laina. Love you.
Love you,
Good to see
honey.
you.
Can't wait to see you on Friday when we get together.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.